Welcome to the Referrals Podcast, the show designed to help everyone from the solopreneur to the Fortune 500 company win the referral game. If you want to build a company with an army of ambassadors and raving fans who speak highly of you and refer you willingly, you are in the right place. And now, here is your host, Michael J. Maher.
Welcome, everyone, to another amazing episode of a Referrals Podcast. Thank you for joining me. If this is your first time, welcome to the community. Please join us at joingengen.com. That's join the generosity generation at joingengen.com. Joingengen.com. We'd love to have you so you can learn more about the referral mastery system and all the great things that we do to generate referrals. And this is the Referrals Podcast, a very special edition today where I am actually going to give you my Hall of Fame books that I have read. These are books that I believe are the greatest books in history for success, marketing, sales, referrals, and just living a great life in general. I've got to give a shout out each and every time that I do a Referrals Podcast. And today is actually from Bob Burg, best-selling author of Endless Referrals and co-author of The Go-Giver and Go-Giver Sell More. His comment is 7L, The 7 Levels of Communication, is a terrific book, a proven no-fail formula for success in real estate sales. In parentheses, he says, though these principles would work in any type of sales, from one of the most successful real estate professionals in modern times. Rarely have I read a book that teaches so powerfully while keeping the reader so involved. This book, written in the form of a fictional story, is a gem that will help anyone who follows its instructions touch a lot more lives and make a lot more money in the process. If you run a sales organization, consider promoting this book to everyone on your team. If you are beginning in sales or even a longtime veteran of the sales profession, invest in this book for yourself. You'll be glad you did. Bob Burg said that, and my good friend Bob Burg, it's an honor and a privilege to have been his friend for years. And what's amazing is some people are just their books. Bob Burg is the go-giver. I have met a lot of authors over the last 15 to 20 years. And some of them don't quite match their book, if you know what I mean. The opposite of that is Bob Burg, who literally personifies and exemplifies what being a go-giver is really all about. And great guy. I really appreciate him. I literally just thought of him this weekend. After RMS, we just had an awesome Referral Mastery Summit, our final summit, if you will, our final Referral Mastery Summit. And just was thinking about him because at the summit, we got into the topic of books, and people were asking me for book recommendations. Well, I've read over 2,500 books. I might have read even more than that, because I know that I had read over 2,500 when I wrote 7L 12 years ago, and I read about a book a month, sometimes more. And it's one of those where I literally had to ask them, like, what topic? And then once they had a topic, it was amazing to me how I had a mental library. Now, I'm getting older, so I have senior moments, I do. But it was amazing to me how I could literally prescribe a book to conquer a problem or a symptom. And that led to me thinking about the Go-Giver and Bob Burg, and it led me to thinking about, I need to do a segment on Referrals Podcast about my Hall of Fame books, like the books that had the biggest impact on me. And we're going to exclude 7L, though I would say that book had the biggest impact on me in my life, to the point where I moved cities, moved my family, 2,000 miles across the country away from Sherry's family, my family, and all Max has really known is Atlanta, Georgia. So 7L is definitely, that book for me. And by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, you are going to be able to see these books and as I show them. If you are listening, I will just kind of give you the book name and then I will describe like what I learned from it and what I got from it. So we're going to exclude for today 7L and The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents because those are my books. Do I put them in the Hall of Fame of books? I definitely think that they are fantastic books that a lot of people should read, right? The Hall of Fame books is a whole different level. The Hall of Fame books are, for one reason or another, game changing, life altering, mind altering, and just truly like had an idea or a point that changed my trajectory and has the opportunity to change your trajectory as well. And I want you to know that I have a lot of friends who are authors, and some of their books will be excluded from the Hall of Fame. That doesn't mean these aren't great and awesome and very valuable books. They are. What I'm choosing are just the ones that really made the biggest impact on me at an extremely high level. So, with that thought in mind, I'm going to get started. And just so you know, this is part one. I'm going to go over the first few, and then I have enough books in this Hall of Fame that it's really going to most likely be two podcasts to break that up and give those books justice. So I said I excluded 7L and The Miracle Morning for Real Estate Agents because I either authored them or co-authored them. And there's another book that some people might exclude from like a Hall of Fame of books because it literally is the greatest sales book of all time. And it is the literally number one book in sales of all time. There's more of these sold and printed and published in more different languages than any other book. And you know what I'm talking about, right? It is the Bible, right? Now, I don't want you to think, by the way, don't you think Michael Maher would have a Bible that has a Thomas Kincaid the lighthouse picture on it? And this is an awesome Bible, right? It is leather bound. It's beautiful. It does the Bible justice. You know what I mean? And so this has been very impactful in my life, and especially now you might think Matthew, Michael, Luke, the all the different books in the book have made an impact, but none more than Proverbs. Like how about the fact that Proverbs has 31 chapters, right? And we have 31 days in our months. There's something to that. There's something to that. Maybe we challenge ourselves this year that every 31 day month, we will tap into Proverbs. We'll read one a day for 31 days and just open our eyes. It is amazing to me. I have read Proverbs. I've read the Bible completely through 3 times probably in my life. And thank you to YouVersion. I've also read it on my phone probably another 3 or 4 times. But with Proverb, it's like every single time I go through it, I get something new. I I get I get a sentence or I get a metaphor or an analogy for the first time. And I think that's what makes a great book. I think with 7L, a lot of people read the book the first time to get to the end of the story and find out what happens. And then they read it again and they pick up a couple more strategies and they read it again and they read it again. And eventually, like, it's 7 or 8 reads deep and you're still getting some of the wisdom that's intertwined in the story. And that's definitely Proverbs for me and the Bible. So, and you all know that my business and 7L and the referral mastery system, the values that we have, love, generosity, and appreciation, are rooted in Proverbs 11:25. Proverbs 11:25 essentially says, "A generous one shall be a prosperous one. He who refreshes others shall himself be refreshed." Well, I mean, that was eye-opening for me because I came from a very poor upbringing. And I always thought when I made some money, and I knew I was going to make money, I just knew it, right? I just knew that I was going to be rich. I was going to be wealthy, and I didn't know how to get there or what I was doing. But I was just like, you know what? When I become wealthy, I'm going to be really generous. And that's what a lot of people think of when it comes to generosity is, well, Elon Musk, he has all this money, or Richard Branson, Warren Buffett, he has all this money, or Bill Gates, or whatever, Jeff Bezos, he has all this money. He should give money to charity, right? Well, it's like, it's his money. It's their money. They can do whatever they want with it, right? Well, Proverbs 11:25 flipped the script on prosperity and generosity. It doesn't say once you're prosperous, you should be generous. It says a generous one shall be a prosperous one. And guess what? So I exercised generosity. I gave what I have. I didn't have any money. I didn't have certain things, but I did have other things. I grew a network full of great connections so I could connect members of my tribe and members of my team. And I had time so I could go over to a client's house and shovel their driveway or help them with staging or move furniture or whatever it may be. So it's one of those where, truly a generous one shall be a prosperous one, and generosity comes first. Generosity leads to reciprocity. They want to give back. Reciprocity leads to referrals. If we educate our tribe and our network well enough, they will reciprocate with referrals. Referrals lead to profitability. The most profitable type of business is referrals generated by word of mouth, repeat and referrals, the lifetime value of a client, the lifetime value of a referral source greater than any other type of person. And guess what? That profitability of that business leads to your business having money, but there's something more powerful than your business having money. And that freedom, choice, health, family, relationships, life in general, health. And if you roll all of those words into one word, the word you get is prosperity. So profitability in your business leads to prosperity in life. Well, prosperity leads to more generosity. Generosity leads to more reciprocity, and so on and so forth. So, from Proverbs 11:25, I have essentially grown this amazing, powerful tribe of trust and a community of like-minded people with no ego and with just an incredible ability to share and care and grow together. So obviously, the Bible had a big impact on me. I maybe I could have excluded it just because it's just assumed to be in the Hall of Fame of books, but it's definitely in my Hall of Fame of books, and I don't, I just believe that it needed to be included. So the Bible, and just know I wasn't raised in like a Christian family or a Catholic family. I was just raised on how to be a good person. And I discovered Christianity later on, and I discovered the Bible later on. And even in my 20s, I did not understand the Bible. And then, as I grew in wisdom and maturity, I started to understand the lessons. And I'm really glad I did. And it obviously made a big impact on me. Now, in my 20s, I uh, I was aimless. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I went to school, to college, to essentially be an electrical engineer. And what's interesting about that is I went to be an electrical engineer. One is because my brother, my older brother, my oldest brother, Steve, was an electrical engineer, went through school, and I always kind of wanted to be like my big brother. Well, he ended up getting into this small little company called Intel right out of college, and the rest is history, right? Millions, done very well, very, very well. And he was an electrical engineer for Intel until he retired. So um, and the other number two reason that I went is because my counselor saw that I was strong in math and science, and they're like, you should go into engineering because you're strong in math and science. Uh, you know, that didn't work, right? So, um, when I was about 25, I really was searching, and I came across a book, and I don't know how I came across it, but for some reason, I was getting into sales for the first time. And I think someone said when I was teaching, I ended up graduating from college and got a teaching degree so that I could also coach sports. Well, somebody was said something about like mathematics is the toughest thing to do is sell math to high school uh, students, right? And so I was just like, well, maybe I should learn a little bit more about sales. And interestingly enough, the first book, this is literally a catalytic moment in Michael Maher's life, and this book belongs in the Hall of Fame. This is The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. I got so lucky that this was the first self-help success sales book that I ever picked up. And if you're not familiar with the greatest salesman in the world, and look at this, like this is literally the copy that I read. Now I'm going to open this very delicately, but if you look at my hands are shaking, like, and I even put my name Maher, right? Because I didn't want anybody taking it. That's how precious this book was to me. But if you look in this book, like there are highlights, different, there's yellow and pink and blue. I mean, look at that. Like you can literally almost everything is highlighted. Now you got to realize something. For me to highlight in a book had to really be an impactful moment because once again, I grew up very poor. So I didn't buy books. I got them at the library. Well, when you get books at the library, I've always been a voracious reader, but I mainly read sports stories and books about sports. Well, you checked them out. Well, what could you not do? You can't write in a book. You have to deliver it back to the book in the same condition, or back to the library in the same condition that you got it in. Well, when I got this book and, they're underlining, you know, failure will never overtake me if my determination to succeed is strong enough, right? And it just, this book, you need to read it, and you need to read about the scrolls that have the rules essentially for sales on them, and read the story that is in The Greatest Salesman in the World. And this is a priceless book, right? This particular book is priceless to me, but the lessons will be priceless to you. So another Hall of Fame book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. All right. So that's my first success book, self-help book, like mindset book. I'm already like it's churning, and it's like thank God it was a story. Thank God it was super interesting. I mean what a phenomenal book. It is just a phenomenal book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, right? I hope to write a book like that even touches anything close to that someday. You know what I mean? And so now I'm thinking and I'm getting better. And then I discovered one of the most recommended books of all time, especially for salespeople. But I've always been interested in like how successful people became successful. When I was in school, I wasn't one of the popular kids. I moved there in third grade. They had already been to, they had already taken kindergarten, first and second grade. They all knew each other. I was the stranger, and I was a poor stranger. So I lived in the wrong part of town. I, probably had messed up hair. I probably was dirtier than normal because I like sports, you know. My knees were probably scuffed up. My elbows were probably scuffed up. You know, I probably had scratches from fighting with my brothers, you know, or whatever it may be. But so I'd always, like, as I got older and going through middle school and high school, I started studying what the popular people did to become more popular. And I learned from that. I didn't become maybe necessarily any more popular, but I learned from that enough to, like, what do people do to make friends? You know? And I learned and I learned. So this next book that is certainly in the Hall of Fame is, I mean, look at this book. Once again, right? I just shared with you the greatest salesman in the world, and my hands were shaking as I was opening. Now, it was a very delicate book because it's a paperback. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a first edition Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People, that is literally autographed by Dale Carnegie. Right there. Can you see that? Autographed by Dale Carnegie. And this was a gift given to me by Stacy Alcorn with Lair Realty, and also an author of several great books. We actually used the same self-published company, Author House, when we did our books. Well, what's interesting, and I had a ticket to John Osseroff's house, dinner at John Osseroff's house. John Osseroff wrote the book The Answer, and he was also featured in The Secret. And his claim to fame, the thing he was featured about, was his vision board with the house on it. And I actually had dinner. Oh, he had a vision board with a house on it, and it was like his dream house. Well, he ended up about 5 years later, not knowing it, but he bought a house in California that he loved. Well, when his son took the vision board out, the son was like, "Daddy, look, it's our house." Well, on that house, or on that vision board, was the picture of the house that they were now living in. Well, just talks about manifesting the things in your life. Well, I had dinner at that house and I had an open seat. So I invited Stacy to join me, and we had dinner at John Osseroff's house and got to hear the actual story behind the vision board, and got to see the vision board, and had an awesome dinner with some extremely successful people. What rooms are you in, right? But her gift to me was a book that I think it's the book that I've read the most. I've read it more than 22 times. It's How to Win Friends and Influence People, another book that as I go through it, I seem to always pick up something from it. One of those things is learning names. I was not great at remembering names and doing very well with names. Well, after I read that, I made a concerted effort, and I'm hard of hearing. So when somebody says a name, sometimes it doesn't click, and I get like Kim. I'll just get certain, like Kim and Amy. I know they don't even sound alike, but sometimes get them mixed up. Jim and Ken, right? Well, I learned from How to Win Friends and Influence People how important the name was. So I got a lot better at asking them to spell it, and to help, when they spelled it, I would usually associate something with them, with their name. If it was a gym, I just imagine them working out at the gym, and sweating and just like grunting and lifting, 5,000 pounds, and that kind of thing. So, that's not, another one is just the whole ability to be diplomatic, which really helped me in real estate sales, is instead of getting frustrated, get into a position where you're more diplomatic. What is the benefit of everyone involved for this new solution? And that really came from, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And, there's some books that are really well known and recommended a lot. A lot of times when people saw, a couple books, How to Win Friends and Influence People and Think and Grow Rich. Well, Think and Grow Rich is not in my Hall of Fame, right? It's a classic, of course, but it's not in my Hall of Fame. How to Win Friends and Influence People, prominent member of the Hall of Fame. You got to read it. It's by Dale Carnegie. If you've never read it, be prepared to buy a copy and keep it forever. And it is one book that I would heavily consider that you buy a hard copy versus just listening to it. Listening to it's fantastic, but there's just something about reading How to Win Friends and Influence People in a hard copy. All right. So, have we started out on fire or what? And guess what? Like it keeps on going. Another book that I have to put in my Hall of Fame. It has to be Stephen Covey's The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. This was a game changer for me. I wasn't real organized. I didn't even know the importance of organization until I became a teacher. And one of those things that you need to organize is kind of like organizing your thoughts. Well, I'm not sure if there's any book that had the thoughts and concepts organized better than The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. And you saw me refer to it in 7L, right? In fact, I've referred to all three of the books that I've mentioned. So actually, all four of the books that I've mentioned so far, and I didn't even realize that till just now, that they were all mentioned as additional reading. But begin with the end in mind, right? What do you want? What do you want in the end? And in 7L, I talk about the four eulogies, and I talk about, how, what would your client show up at your funeral? What would they say? What do you want them to say? What are the, two or three most common words that you want people to use to describe you? And that's honestly a big part of where the values of love, generosity, and appreciation came from. Is like, those are the words, when it all said and done, I hope people use about me, and you probably hope people use about you. So I'm just telling you, this book, and here's what's interesting too, is that this is a phenomenal book. This is organized as well. The time management matrix, like, it's such a valuable, doing things that are not urgent but important, right? You got important and urgent, you got not important, not urgent, you got not important, urgent, and then you've got important, not urgent, right? I think I got all four of those right. But the one, important and urgent is you cut your finger off, you better take care of it, right? You don't have a lot of those, but we treat a lot of things as important and urgent, but they're really not important and urgent. We let things like Facebook, we let things like whatever interrupts us, right? Reactionary things. But where we need to spend our time is in the important but not urgent, which is, preparing, planning, executing, doing things, making phone calls, doing appointments, that kind of thing. And then you have the not important, not urgent, which is, video games and trivia, trivial things and things that aren't important, right? So anyway, I mean, I could just give you so many lessons from the Seven Habits of Highly Effective People that, I mean, first things first, what are the priorities of your life? What should be the priority? And what's cool about that is how the time management matrix and the first things first tie together to really play a big part in what I teach and what I believe and what I execute on literally a daily basis around time block, right? It's put the big rocks first into your schedule, right? Not the important but not urgent big rocks, things like, the hour of power and the first and 10 and the events and all these preparation and different things like that. Just really, really powerful book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And this, something that tells you about this book is, Stephen Covey was not a great speaker. I don't know if he ever became comfortable in front of audiences. It just seemed like he was always really uncomfortable. Whereas Dale Carnegie was a master in front of an audience, right? But that just, and honestly, a big reason that Dale Carnegie sold so many books early is because he did speak and sell his books, and he actually created the speaking series. So with Stephen Covey, he was just never really comfortable. But I will tell you that if you've got some extra time on YouTube today, you might want to look up Stephen Covey on big rocks and watch the video of what his lesson on putting big rocks first in your life. And maybe it will inspire you to put your big rocks in first in your life. So, anyway, like, and you'll see it, right? You'll see what I'm talking about with Dr. Covey, with how he is on stage. He does great. Like, the lesson is fantastic, but you're just gonna see, like, he's not there for the flourish. He's not there for the flair of the dramatic or anything like that. He executes on stage, and I just thought, I mean, and maybe if he was a better speaker, he would, maybe there'd be even more sales of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is just crazy to think of. Kind of interesting story is Covey actually eventually partnered with the Franklin Planner Company, and I think it was actually called the Franklin Covey. Yeah, later on they called it Franklin Covey, and they actually made a planner that I used in my business, and it was a paper planner. And turned out to be just a really, really good partnership of, these systems and structures, and Stephen Covey's wisdom, and the Franklin Covey Company, really powerful. So that book, definitely in the Hall of Fame of books. I spoke about him in the opening, and another book that impacted me in a big way, and this impacted me in a different way. This is The Go-Giver. And one of the things that this is by Bob Burg and John David Mann. If you haven't read The Go-Giver, this is a signed copy from Bob Burg himself. And I think, number one, it reaffirmed how I was doing business, building on relationships instead of, when I got into sales in the start, like, everything was boiler room, like Wolf on Wall Street. Wolf on Wall Street hadn't come out yet. Boiler room, Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, very hardcore close. You got to be a closer or you'll never last in the business. And the Go-Giver just really reinforced to me that, I'm going to be successful by building relationships and giving and that kind of thing. And then I think what really puts this book in the Hall of Fame for me, it is a story. Once again, you're going to see a theme here. Is I tend to like these books that have a story associated with them, and the Go-Giver is a parable, and it's a really good one, really good story. But it's honestly putting the Go-Giver with Bob Burg that makes this a Hall of Fame book, because, as I said before, the author and the book don't always go together. And in this case, I got to see a real life and experience, I get to experience a real life Go-Giver and a model of what he teaches and what he wrote about. And so here's the thing, is Bob Burg in my Hall of Fame of books, or is the Go-Giver in my Hall of Fame of books? And it's like, well, guess what? It's the combination of the two intertwined. The book is phenomenal. The book is required reading. And, Bob is one of the most awesome people on earth. So, there you go. Get yourself a copy of the Go-Giver. All right. And so we just have two more to cover today. And one of them is going to be a humongous surprise for most of you. Okay. Now, the next book is made a huge impact on me to the day, to this day. I literally, this is the first thing that comes out of my brain on a daily basis to start my workday. So this is The One Thing by Mr. Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. And you'll see this is an advanced reader copy that is that's signed by Mr. Keller himself. I don't know if you can see that there. Oops. There, let's go like this. Those are my notes. Like, I mean, 3 pages of notes, right? And Mr. like Post-it man, right? So signed by the man. Time on the task over time is what matters most. Onward, Gary Keller. All right. So, powerful book. In The One Thing, Gary and Jay talk about a question, the structured question, essentially the simplification of your life question. And it is, what is the one thing such that by doing it, everything else is either easier or unnecessary? And I literally, every day, I start with 5 questions. It's my pro-launch ritual. I think I've given it on this podcast before. And I start my workday and I take a marker. And the first question I ask myself is, what is the one thing such that by doing it, everything else is either easier or unnecessary? Which is such a powerful question. And it's it's always under the context of work or the schedule or the day. And like every day I have that thing. Sometimes it's the same thing for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And that's what I'm working on 3 hours a day. And until I get my one thing done, everything else doesn't matter. And that's how, I mean, I wish I would have put my event mastery book on. I wrote the most awesome workbook, playbook for a course I've ever done. The event mastery playbook I would put against any workbook. You know why? Because I looked at all the workbooks and all the playbooks of all the classes that I've ever taken. And also I took them all and I like, here's the best, right? So that was my one thing for literally like 3 months, 3 hours a day for 3 months. I worked on that one thing. And guess what? There's a sense of pride. It's like another baby. Like it's another kid. It's another part of my family. This book that was created because I focused on my one thing. I truly believe that the one thing leads to conquering the biggest projects of your life. And those are the most fulfilling projects. It's usually we have all these things that we work in the business doing, phone calls and emails and text messages and Facebook messages, whatever it may be. But it's really when we move the needle the most is when we work on our business. We work on a project. We work on something that has lasting power and staying power. And so that one question truly sets the tone of my entire day. Does it get any more impactful from a book standpoint that somebody took that question that you suggested and made it a part, especially as I'll toot my own horn, a successful person, an achiever took that question and made it a part of their daily ritual in their professional lives and, sets the tone. So very powerful. You might be asking, what are the other 4 questions on my pro-launch ritual? I'll answer it really quickly. Where do I have momentum right now? Where is my biggest opportunity right now? What is the fastest path to the cash? Which is a really important question for me because I'll do things not for money, right? But that where's the fastest path to the cash reminds me that we are in a business that needs to profit. So it's like, all right, what's a project? What do we need to do to usually gets me thinking about sales and marketing. And then the 5th question is, what is my biggest challenge right now? What is my biggest challenge right now? Right. And my focus typically are those first 4 questions, with the 5th question is usually reminding me to delegate something or leverage something to a person, to a system, or build the system or a technology. That's what is my biggest challenge right now usually leads to giving it to someone else, honestly, because if it's my biggest challenge and it's not done yet, right, or it's not being worked on, then it's probably outside my skill zone and outside of a skill zone that I want to apply. So that's probably more than you wanted to know about the pro launch ritual, but those are the 5 questions that I start my day with, and it's a very powerful way to start a professional day. All right. This book, the last of today's show, is going to surprise you because I bet you haven't read it. The other books, I bet you've read, 5 out of 6. I bet you've read those other books. But this book was very impactful in my business. I read it when I first started getting into real estate, and I discovered that a way to grow your business was through networking and building relationships with new people, new professional people. And literally, the first book I read on it, and I'm going to give Jim Bloffus, a Remax real estate agent, full credit because he suggested this book to me, and I absolutely devoured it, which makes a lot of sense for this book because the name of the book is called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive by Harvey Mackay. Now, this is the preeminent, in my opinion, networking book. And what it is Harvey Mackay actually owned a paper company. I mean, think about it, like a paper company. But it was one of the best-selling paper companies in the world. And imagine being like a paper salesman. But he took networking and meeting people to a level that I had never thought about. And he did something called the 66 question questionnaire. He literally, with his clients and the buyers of paper, like his clients were paper buyers. Well, with them, he had a 66 question questionnaire, a profile of 66 different things, which included things like favorite drink, spouse's name, significant other's name, birthdays of the kids, dogs, birthday of the dogs, favorite church or church affiliated with, favorite restaurant, favorite type of food, favorite drink, favorite, thing to order at a candy shop. Like literally, it had every question on it. Well, I instantly created the VIP form. And by the way, if you want a copy of a VIP, I mean, you're talking about a lot of work. I put a couple years of work and honing into the VIP form. And the VIP form was I put their name on the top, and then it was a series of questions that I asked them when I met them for a buyer's consultation or a seller's consultation, or I would meet somebody through a networking event, or I would have them fill it out at my events, like a board of advisors or board of ambassadors event. And they would fill it out and circle and do a VIP form. And I literally have a 3-ring binder right over there called my ambassador book. And in there, it's just like 250 VIP forms from the people in my tribe. And just imagine the power that wields or welds when you are out and about and you can remember their wife's name, their kids' names, their birthday, anniversary that's coming up, whatever it may be. I had that, and before I would walk into a place where I knew I was going to run into it, or a football, it was I would amaze people when we'd be sitting there watching the game. I would ask about a million different things. Have you been to Israel yet? I know you had it on your bucket list to go to Israel. Is that like in the plans? Like, what are you thinking? It's like, oh no, or whatever. And it's just like, well, what would you do in Israel? What's the draw there? And like I literally could ask them about 20 different things in their life. And I am just going to, I mean, I had people say this is like, they're like, you know more about me than my spouse does. And I probably did. And why did I? Because I asked. And the reason I asked is because I came across this book and I do not have a 60, I do have a long form VIP form. I don't think I ever used it. Like I might, it had, I think it did have 66 to 70 questions on it, but I used the short form VIP form, which had about 30 of the most important questions on it. And I got that puppy from Swim with the Sharks. And, you know, it took over, like, it was one of the best things I brought to, it made me valuable to something called the Star Power community. And the Star Power Stars, it was a community by Howard Brinton. And one of the first things I brought to them was just this VIP form or my favorites form. Um, and it spread like wildfire throughout the Star Power system. And I got kind of known about that for a while. And then they found out about my housewarming parties and it kind of took off from there. And I became a Star Power star in 2005 and got the opportunity to be mentored by, you know, one of the greatest in the history of real estate, which is Howard Brinton. So, you know, it's amazing how maybe something you're thinking is really small or somewhat insignificant can actually help a lot of people. And it was just this little one pager, like the back was empty, unused real estate, though I would take notes on the back of it. But like a one sheet VIP form, my favorites form, favorite things form. And that came from Harvey McKay and Swim with the Sharks. And so those are my first part one of the Hall of Fame book, Swim with the Sharks by Harvey McKay. We've got The One Thing by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. Great book. The Go-Giver by the Go-Giver himself, Bob Berg, and co-authored with John David Mann, also a great guy. And 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen R. Covey. Great book. And then How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie, and The Greatest Salesman in the World, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. Very delicate copy there. And of course, I started, great place to finish, is the Bible. I am very curious to know what would be in your Hall of Fame books. Please join us at joingengen.com and share with me your Hall of Fame of books and what you learned from those books. I'd love to learn more. I appreciate you. And also, please do me a favor. If you liked what you heard today, subscribe, maybe even write a review, rate us, whatever it may be. 5 stars are great. But if you do review us, make sure you put your contact information in the review because A, I might read it on the air live, and B, people do refer people who listen to Referrals podcast. So make sure in your review you put your contact information. So this is part 1. Part 2 will be next time. I appreciate you, and I will see you next time on Referrals podcast.